On the list. Actually, I have two questions. When and where did you live? And also, your son had mentioned some of the things, that are avoided in Islam. What are the means by which you would, if you do fall short of those? Is
Okay.
there a means of coming to rectification, or resolving those
Right.
when you
When you fall
of
short.
yes. So two questions.
Okay. That's a great question. So about how to make up when you do break the quote unquote rules. So we don't have anything like confession in the Catholic faith. What we have is basically taking yourself to account with God personally, one-on-one. So we have our 5 prayers a day. And so there's a process called repentance. And there's, I think, 5 steps you go through for repentance. One is to recognize that you made a mistake. And the second is to ask God to forgive you for that mistake. The third is to resolve that you're not going to make that mistake again. The fourth is then to stop yourself from doing it. And then the fifth is, if you do go back to it, if you do go back to whatever those infractions are, then to go through those steps again. So, but repentance basically is direct communication with God, just recognizing that you're helpless without Him and without His guidance, and that you need Him to take temptations away or make things easier for you. And then also recognizing what kind of situations make you more vulnerable, and then resolving to stay away from those things that may make you vulnerable. One of the things I know one of my teachers had pointed out was that in the Quran, when we have the story of Adam and Eve, God says to Adam and Eve, both of them, don't go near the tree. So the thing that I remember my teacher pointing out was that he didn't say don't eat from the tree. He said don't even go near the tree. So understanding that there's an environment around the things that you're not supposed to be doing, which you may enter that gray area, which then can lead you to the actual sin, for lack of a better word. So to be careful about that, what environments you are in, what kind of friends you have. Oh, sorry. Oh, and the Prophet Muhammad. I'm sorry. It was 1400 years ago that he lived, and he was born in the city of Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia now, and he passed away in the city of Medina, which is also in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any other thing that jihad means? Because I know it does mean I know it means some peaceful things, because one of my main hobbies is studying languages. I learned that it comes from the Arabic word jihada, which means to strive and struggle. I'm just wondering, is there anything else that means?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Jihad actually does mean struggle, and one of the famous stories that we're told is when the Prophet Muhammad was returning from a battle with his companions, he turned to his companions and said, we now return home from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. And his companions asked, what's that? What's the greater jihad? And he said, that's the struggle against the self, against the ego, the jihad against the ego. So it's really just stepping on your ego and doing what you know is right, even though you don't want to do it. So that's actually, that's how we've understood jihad. Jihad is understood to be in a military context as well as in self-defense. But unfortunately, the word has been co-opted recently. Yeah, so basically a lot of people think that jihad basically means to go out, blow yourself up, kill people, which is really unfortunate. I mean, I know somebody whose name is jihad. Boys get named jihad because it's considered to be a noble thing to struggle through this life to do right. And I know a young man who couldn't get a personalized license plate because his name is jihad. So they were told, nope. Sure. I was explaining to Karis earlier that Arabic is a fascinating language. If any of you guys ever get to study it, it's so popular right now. It's impossible to get in the classes at DVC, I know. But every Arabic word has a trilateral root. Every word comes down to 3 Arabic letters. And those 3 Arabic letters then can be rotated to create a new word. And then the new word that's created is actually linked somehow to the first word. So the example I gave was haram, which means prohibited. So like, alcohol or pornography, that's haram in our lives, right? It's prohibited. So the triliteral root for haram is HRM. You rotate the letters, HRM, and you can make it RHM, which forms the word rahma, which means mercy. So the understanding is that anything that's prohibited for you is actually a mercy, rather than thinking, why can't I do this, why can't I do that? To recognize that it's actually a mercy, there's some kind of protection in it. That's why God's telling you to stay away from it. So the same thing with Muslim. The trilateral root of Muslim is SLM, which means salam, which means peace. It's how we greet one another. Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon you. In the Jewish language, it's shalom, right? So salam means peace. But when you turn it into Muslim, the trilateral root becomes ZLM, zulm. And that actually means oppression. So you're actually telling, when you call someone Muslim, it actually means somebody who oppresses. Whereas if you call somebody Muslim, it means someone who wishes you peace. So it's very nuanced, it's very subtle, it's not something most people, 99% of people, even Muslims probably don't know this stuff. But for those of us who do, it's like nails on a chalkboard when you hear the news reporters going, Muslim religion. It's like, no, it's not Muslim, it's Muslim.
One more question. So because you're now second generation here, and how are your teenagers doing with living in the American culture and going away to college? Are some of them leaving the faith, or what are you finding?
There's quite a few that are leaving the faith, unfortunately, or not leaving, but they just don't know what they're doing necessarily. They don't really know anything about the religion. But then there's also quite a bit who are doing everything right. So I think it's going back to it. I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, atheism has a kind of, I don't want to say done a number, but definitely I know, Shaan, you've told me that you've seen atheism has really become an issue even amongst Muslims, like where they're starting to question faith because the atheist organizations have gotten very organized. They have some very savvy speakers, and they've written some bestseller books. So that's come up more. It's probably come up because after 9/11, I think it's very hard for kids to admit they're Muslim, and there's a lot of bullying going on in schools, and a lot of kids choose to go underground and not admit that they're Muslim, don't want to be identified as Muslims. So we are seeing that is something that families are struggling with. We don't have numbers so much, but definitely. We don't have Muslims converting to other faiths so much as maybe Muslims becoming atheists.